So just to start off with acknowledgement of country, I pay respects to the elders past and present and the traditional owners of this land on which we share our knowledge and experiences. I'm on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on which the grounds of University of Sydney stand. I'm in my office, and you can see the sort of Lego Titanic in the background with some of the books and also my degree over there with my PhD. So welcome to this session for biomedical engineering. And in this session, what I hope to do is to really talk about what biomedical engineering is, right, firstly, and also what biomedical engineers do. And in the given context of the University of Sydney, where we do offer this, one of the most comprehensive biomedical engineering degrees in Australia, and what we do here for our biomedical engineering program. Right? So my name is Young. My name is Dr. Young No. That's my formal name. And I'm the Deputy Head of School Education at the School of Biomedical Engineering. And I am here to present this webinar. All right, so for those that have come in a bit earlier, I did ask you sort of what is biomedical engineering? What comes into your mind when I ask biomedical engineering? Actually, let's go one step up here with engineering, right? Engineering is about making something like a product or a device or even a system for something, right? In that second something is a need, right? A clinical need or some kind of need where we need to make something for to solve that particular problem. And of course, you would have heard that engineering is quite closely associated with that concept of problem solving, right? Engineers are good problem solvers. And this is where it sort of comes from, right? We're trying to make something to solve a particular need. And of course, biomedical engineering is really about using those principles of engineering, of problem solving techniques for the sectors of biology and medicine, right? Typically also called biotechnology, biomedical, biobiology, medicine, right? All of that really encompasses under biomedical engineering, right? So if engineering is about developing products, devices, and systems, I want you to now think about what kinds of products, what kinds of devices, what kinds of engineering solutions would sort of typically fall under sort of biomedical engineering, right? And biomedical devices. I'll give you a minute to think about that. It is a rhetorical question, so you don't have to put it into the chat. Just think about what kind of devices are out there for biomedical engineering and what kind of things that we use. Right? Maybe I'll start by saying, have you ever thought about Band-Aids being a product of biomedical engineering? Right? Band-Aids is something that we use quite often, right? And it is a thing that we use to cover our wounds or cover any cuts, right? But behind that Band-Aid, there's a lot of engineering considerations that come into play. First of all, right, does it stick onto the skin, right? Does it stick onto the skin enough so that when you rip it off, it doesn't rip off your skin at the same time, right? Does it interact? Does the material of the Band-Aid interact favorably with the wound? Does it release any toxic or poisonous stuff? Hopefully not, right? So just even starting from the little Band-Aid, right? That's a product of biomedical engineering. Of course, we then delve into devices such as pacemakers, which control your heartbeat, cochlear implants that help you hear if you have a hearing defect or a clinical condition, right? And there's also hip and knee implants, and also things like X-rays and scanners, CT scanners that help us diagnose particular medical conditions. That all falls under biomedical engineering. They're all engineering solutions, or they're all devices that help us solve and analyze sort of issues with the biomedical area, right? So in terms of history, right, biomedical engineering has had a huge beneficial impact onto human lives in the 21st century, right? 21st century being pre-2000s, actually post-2000s, and even before that, in the 20th century for that matter. Right? And so things like pacemakers, but also dental implants that help us sort of replace tooth that we lose. There's also things like hip and knee replacements, as I mentioned, vascular stents to help with clogged arteries. Let's say if you've eaten too much fatty foods without naming particular fast food chains, right? You'll develop a sort of a blocked artery, and then if things get worse, then you do have to sort of expand that to allow for the blood to flow. Right? You also have artificial discs, where if you have a degenerated disc or a spinal issue, right, issue in the spine where there's soft tissue between the two, let's say, spinal bones, right, become, let's say, degenerated or become weakened, but you need to add in a different material, synthetic material, to help support the spinal column, right? So here are some examples of how biomedical engineering has had a huge beneficial impact to our human lives, not only in the 21st century, but also in the 20th century too, right? So these examples are all about implants, stuff that we put inside our body, right? So there's all these considerations about the material choice, right? Are these materials toxic? Are these materials fine? Are these materials strong enough, right? Do these materials conduct enough electricity? All of that is under the sort of the engineering, the principles of engineering. And you've also got things that we apply on the outside. So these are called external devices, not necessarily implants. So prosthesis, leg prosthesis, upper limb prosthesis, like your arm. Right? You've also got braces. I'm sure most of you would have had braces at some point, right? For someone that hasn't had braces, myself, like my teeth aren't perfectly aligned, right? Braces are important for aligning your teeth, right? And there's important characteristics of braces where, right, firstly, the material has to be good in such a way that you don't taste the metal all the time. It doesn't eat into your tooth, right? So all these considerations there. Wheelchairs, also a product of biomedical engineering. I talked about wound dressings, right? Band-aids, but also more of the clinical wound dressings, and respirators and masks, also products of biomedical engineering. Okay. So biomedical engineering is it really has evolved in the past sort of, let's say, century or so, right? Where if you go back, even let's say 100 years, right? These things weren't as prevalent as they are now, right? These would have been very rare if there were any, right? Let's say even for prostheses, definitely contact lenses is a relatively recent invention, braces as well in its current format, right? These are, biomedical engineering has really taken off, right? And to the point where it's now its own discipline, which governs the discovery and the engineering of all these products and all these devices and products I'm talking about today, right? It's not just about devices as well. It's also about sort of monitoring and diagnosis, detecting diseases like MRI, CT, X-ray scans, and also with like Fitbit monitors and wearable monitors and monitors that monitor your heart rate, oxygen levels, and other vital signals. Right? And we're even at the point where we could actually take brain signals, right, without any implants, and use surface electrodes to get electrical signals from our brain, from our muscles, to control machines, and also vice versa, using machines to control muscles and our neural signals. So a lot of advances here. And this is what really got me to biomedical engineering in the first place as well, this interaction between humans and machines, right? Human to machine, machine to humans, and vice versa. And of course, there's rapid advancements in these areas of nanotechnology, nanomedicine, tissue engineering, where we're at a stage where we can now create our own sort of tissues in a synthetic way, and we can replicate the complex vascular structures, complex organ structures. We can have labs on a chip or organ on a chip to simulate various complex biological reactions, and also advanced AI, advanced bionics, where we can have chips to control how our tissues respond. So what I'm hoping that you've got here so far in the past, let's say, sort of 6 or 7 minutes of this, was really how sort of all-encompassing biomedical engineering has become, especially in our recent society, right? Where basically I've been taught in these media sessions where the first thing that people care about is politics. Second thing that people care about is health, right? And because of this sort of increased focus in the health, increased aging population, and also increasing technology, right, in the general context, has really fed into the development of biomedical engineering. Okay? And so this is now, it's not just at University of Sydney, but other universities around the world, they're recognizing the fact that biomedical engineering is its own now academic field, and a lot of these universities would be offering, like globally, right, a lot of these universities will be offering some kind of biomedical engineering program, okay, to really meet the demands of that biotech, that rapidly advancing biotech and biomedical device sector. All right. So why should you study biomedical engineering then, right? At a more personal level, right? Why should you be studying biomedical engineering? I would strongly recommend this to students who really love the science and engineering, and especially on the biology and medicine side, right? Where really you want to apply that your love for biology, love for the medical sciences, love for the health sciences, right? And bring that to something that's, let's say if you don't really want to become a doctor, let's say, or even if you do want to become a doctor, right? You could do medicine after biomedical engineering too. But having said that, though, if you're interested in the whole biology and medicine side of things, this is a really good degree to get into, right? Because you can see where these sort of devices, where the principles of biomedical engineering apply in real life, right? You also want to explore how engineering can solve the biggest medical and healthcare challenges, right? As I said, the biggest sort of areas of interest as humanity in general is the whole sort of healthcare and medicine, apart from politics, right? And so we want to explore how we can use engineering solutions or engineering principles to solve these problems, right? You love people, right? It's really about dealing with people, right? And obviously I'm biased here, but what we find out with all of our sort of graduates and our students in this area is that we're really compassionate, right? I think that's because we do have that intrinsic interest in dealing with people, right? Because of the whole sort of biomedical engineering sector. And you also want to be in a profession that's beneficial to society. Right? So anything that you really do with these biomedical devices, it's going to be helpful for at least one person, right? And of course, the bigger the scale, the bigger the reach in terms of that benefit. Okay. And so now the next question is, right? Why study your biomedical engineering at University of Sydney, right? And I can say that University of Sydney has the most comprehensive biomedical engineering specific program in Australia, right? Whereas, let's say, other universities tend to be a branch of an existing field, right? So at USyd, biomedical engineering is its own discipline, which then means more biomed specific opportunities and courses that are more tailored to the whole biomedical context, right? And that's quite important when it comes to sort of that understanding that nuance, understanding that sort of intricacies in the sort of medical sector, how we can apply engineering principles in those sectors. And so this, if you compare, let's say, even just at the most rudimentary level, right, the number of biomedical engineering subjects, we have a very wide range, 36 unique biomedical engineering subjects compared to other leading biomedical engineering programs in Australia. Okay. And also, I like this phrase, time is money, right? Especially if you're younger, right? If you're younger, time is even more valuable, right? I would say, I think most of us, the older generation would agree with that sentiment. Usually, you would complete a single biomedical engineering degree normally in 4 years, full time, right? And you can also combine this with other degrees, right? To broaden your horizons and to broaden your opportunities. And in a sense, you could do a simple arithmetic here where 4 plus 3 magically equals to 5 or 5.5, depending on the combined degree that you choose. So you can combine it with either science, medical science, or science with health science. This is a very common combination, and this is only available with the biomedical engineering program. And there's also, you can combine with just normal science, right? If you are interested, let's say astronomy or a science area which would be traditionally not really associated with biomedical engineering, that's fine too. That's also 5 years, right? Project management, you could also combine that with a Bachelor of Project Management for 5 years. Commerce or arts, 5.5, and with laws, 6.5, right? And so I do have some sort of more detailed sort of rationale with these combined degrees towards the end of the webinar, but I'll leave this as a starting point for number of years for these combined degree programs. And as I said, it's biomedical engineering specific, and we've created a program in such a way that we can get our students to specialize in the sort of more exciting, the more biological focused, contemporary, and industry-aligned biomedical engineering areas. So the first one being nanoscale biotech, where we use principles of engineering to control cells and tissues. Biomedical modeling design, essentially designing better biomedical devices, like trying to improve on the existing ones. Bioscience and bioelectronics, really working with that sort of brain and mind brain and machine and brain, or machine and muscle, muscle and machine, that interaction, right? Controlling that with electronics and controlling the body, and also biocomputation, using computational tools to solve healthcare problems, right? And so we have options, right? So you could also pick up on other key engineering specializations, which is more to do with sort of more broader engineering, to again further broaden your horizons. So engineering data science, humanitarian engineering, innovation and entrepreneurship, and computer systems. So you can choose units, you can choose subjects that belong to these specializations, and you will be recognized for choosing the units that belong to these specializations. And you'll get in your transcript, you'll say, oh, biomedical engineering specializing in biomedical modeling design and innovation entrepreneurship, right? That's how the specializations are structured. So for biomedical engineering, you could do a total of 2 specializations if you choose the right units, or if you choose the right subjects. So you could be a specialist in nanoscale biotechnology and engineering data science. So that's how the specializations would work, and that will be recorded on your transcript. All right. So of course, this statement is with bias. All right. I am a USyd academic, but I do confidently say that we do have the best facilities and the best academics. Of course, if you've come to campus, we do have that new state-of-the-art learning and research facilities in the engineering campus, but also we do have world leaders, right? World-leading academics who you can learn from and research with as part of your degree, right? Especially in your final year of your degree, which you do have to do a research program or research project, and you can do it with our world-leading academics in these areas of tissue engineering, biology and bioelectronics, plasma treatment, neural imaging or brain imaging, epilepsy detection, mechanobiology, playing with cells, diagnostics and sensors, lab on a chip, organ on a chip, biomechanics, and many more. So this encompasses our academic expertise, which we then derive our programs from. So what should you expect during your engineering degree? What kind of things that you'll be doing, right? These are just some of the examples of activities that you'll be doing: making your own heart rate sensor, making your own orthopedic interference screw, working with clinicians at Westmead, making your own bionic circuit, using code to analyze image and healthcare data, right? Designing your own lab on a chip, making nanoparticles, making your own hydrogels, and playing with cells. Right? So you'll be doing a lot of these really biomedical hands-on activities and learning programs throughout courses. Right? And this will help you become a better biomedical engineer. And of course, you'll be learning about the biomedical industry as well, because this is what you'd be thinking of doing. Well, one of the things that you'd be thinking of doing as you go through your biomedical engineering degree. So learning about product development, product management, manufacturing, and also learning about regulatory affairs, which is a critical component of biomedical engineering, because of course we want our devices to be safe, right? Especially if we're trying to deal with health-based problems, we want them to be safe. And so regulatory affairs is a big component of that. Our cohort is fantastic, right? We actually have a higher female to male ratio in our student body, which is actually quite interesting for an engineering degree, where typically engineering degrees have a higher male population, historically speaking, and hoping that obviously will change over a period of time. But for the time being with BME, right, we do have we're quite proud of this actually, that we do have almost a 50-50 ratio of female to male students. Right, we have a very vibrant society. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it seems because we care about people. That's why we chose biomedical engineering. And so because we chose biomedical and we care about people, right, we tend to be quite friendly with each other. And we're a very diverse group with 50 languages spoken by more than half of our cohort. Okay. So what should I do? Get into biomedical engineering. Generally, the requirements is ATAR of 90 and the Maths Advanced. But of course, there are sub-schemes which can be used, especially with the ATAR, if you need that to be lowered, or if you need that to be if you are taking other schemes, there's other alternative entries as well, right? And so these are sort of the recommended units. You don't have to choose all of them. Obviously, you don't have room to choose all of these units, but if you can choose these units, choose 2. at least. I chose physics and biology when I was in high school and going to biomedical engineering. So physics and biology is fine. So often students choose physics and chemistry or biology and chemistry. That's fine too. Right? Just 2 out of those, the bubbles on the right, or even one. Right? There are bridging courses available as well that you can do as you come into the degree. So it's not a be all end all, right? But you do. This is sort of the required on the left hand side. The right hand side is more recommended. Right, so what should you expect after your degree? I'm just kind of sort of rushing through this because I know it's getting approaching 4:25. So I'll answer questions after this final stretch. Basically, what you do after your degree, you make an impact to the biotech industry. So many of the largest companies around the world are actually biomedical and biotechnology focused. So it's companies like Stryker, Medtronic, they're multi-billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar international, transnational companies that have bases. And most of the bases for the Asia Pacific are actually located in Sydney. Right? So Sydney is actually a very popular location for the Asia Pacific operations for these companies. And of course, other major tech companies like Apple, Google, Samsung, the big tech companies are also investing heavily into biomedical and healthcare technologies because they know this is where it's going. Right? And of course, Australia does have that sort of flourishing biotech sector because we are an international hub of brains, really, right? And so we do have the smartest people in the world residing in Sydney, in Australia. Right? So what our graduates do, I'll just list them out. I just got this straight from my LinkedIn with all my connections, right? And so we got students, our graduates working as engineers in biotech companies, also providing critical support roles in the biotech sector as well. Right? So I could talk more about this in the Q&A, but just as a sort of a layout, these are some of the positions, these are some of the roles that our graduates get into after completing the degree. But also not just biomed companies, but also non-biomed companies and government agencies also seek biomedical engineering due to our STEM diverse skill set. Right? And recent examples of KPMG, Deloitte, all these consulting companies, banking companies, government institutions, they all seek our biomedical engineering graduates. And we are actually one of the highest rates. Well, we do have the highest rate of employment after first year amongst engineering degrees, and also amongst the whole institution as well, University of Sydney. So biomed degree is also suitable as a pre-med degree. It's actually an interesting sort of phenomenon where some students actually come in doing biomedical engineering, weighing up whether they should do biomedical engineering or do medicine afterwards, right? And they leave that decision until the end of their biomedical engineering degree. Some do biomedical engineering, go into industry. Some continue to do their medicine, they pursue the medical degree. Or you could pick up a career in research, right, and do a PhD like me. And be involved in the groundbreaking research that we have in the University of Sydney. So just to close off, right, the School of Biomedical Engineering, University of Sydney, strives to train biomedical engineers well suited to current industry needs. So if you to train our graduates who are specialized in biomedical engineering, but also multidiscipline at the same time to be able to work into the professional setting. Right? And so it's really to provide that foundation of key engineering skills, right, to give you that sense of mastery in the latest biomedical technology and trends, and also the knowledge associated with that as well. All right, so that's the formal presentation from me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I've gone 2 minutes over time, so apologies about that. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay all the way up until 5 if I'm allowed to answer these questions. So I do open the floor for questions, or I'm not too sure how this would work, Erica, in terms of how this would.
Hi, Jan. Thank you very much for that great session. Students, they can put their questions on the Q&A.
Yeah.
So please, any questions that you might have, put them in the Q&A so we can answer them quickly before the.
Yeah, but I'm happy to stay till 5 essentially. So as long as the main messages have been sort of delivered before 4:30. Or like if I manage to cover everything and there are too many questions, there are few questions coming through. I'm currently studying chemistry and physics, but did not choose biology for the HSC. Will that disadvantage me? No, it won't disadvantage you. There's, I think, a majority of our students that are coming into biomedical engineering actually don't do biology. So Carlos, I see that there's like, you're going to answer this question as well, or no? All right, that's fine. Okay, so chemistry and physics, not choose. Chemistry and physics is the common choice, and biology could you can essentially catch up. Not even catch up. You learn it through the course, right? Because there's the biological context is woven in, right? Personally speaking, I chose biology and physics, so I didn't actually do chem. I did a bridging course on chem, coming into the degree. But any two of the sciences, or even just one of the sciences, is fine too. If you're doing maths, I think 3-unit maths is something that you probably think about in general if you're going to do engineering in the future. Can you decide to change to a double degree after your first year? Yes, you can. There are some administrative processes associated with that, but that change isn't too difficult. Right? So you can change to a double degree after your first year if you wish. Do biomedical engineers earn a lot of money? That's an interesting question. Engineers in general do earn a lot of money, right? Compared to let's say other disciplines, especially at the graduate entry level. Obviously, exact numbers, right, would depend on the position, would depend on the sort of the company, depend on the sort of general economic outlook as well, right? But in general, biomedical engineering students, I'll need to support this with official numbers, but generally, they do get paid well, yeah. So, all right. So this is more of a personal question. I definitely want to do BME after school, biomedical engineering after school. I have 14 years and I'm looking at dropping physics. How negatively will this impact my first year? Would you recommend doing a bridging course? I will strongly recommend you doing a bridging course, right? If you're dropping physics, that should be fine, right? I'm like, as in, it's not going to be like the be all and the end all in terms of choosing engineering. Physics does help, right? More so than I think. Okay, this is just a personal assessment. Physics and chemistry will be more helpful than biology, right? In terms of coming in, just because of the relative difficulty, I guess. But having said that, though, like, as in, you can come without having done physics and still be able to more than adequately sort of work through the degree without physics. Right? So, how negative would this impact? Not much. It wouldn't negatively impact too significantly. But definitely, I would suggest you do a bridging course on physics when you're coming in. Right? So the bridging courses, just to go ahead with the bridging courses, I strongly recommend bridging courses. Not just for the content, but also just to get into that whole university learning mindset as well, right? It's different to high school, right? The learning at university is different to high school, and the bridging course is actually, intentionally or unintentionally, it does get you into that sort of university mode, right? So I would strongly recommend bridging courses regardless of whether you need to do it or not, right? It does cost a bit, right? But not as exorbitantly, right? It's decently priced, right? So you still, I would strongly recommend doing bridging courses, right? Are there enough placements for biomedical engineers during their degrees or after they finish their degree? All right. So this is a common question that comes up. As far as I have been observing, there's no particular sort of difficulties for biomedical engineering students in finding placements. Like, the finding placements is fairly straightforward. I haven't had too many cases where students weren't able to graduate. Well, actually, I haven't had any cases where students weren't able to find placements to complete their degree requirements, because you do need to have a placement or some kind of engineering experience before you graduate. I haven't had any cases where a student wasn't able to graduate because they weren't able to do a placement. Okay, so are there enough placements for biomedical engineers during their degrees or after they finish their degree? The answer is yes, there are enough placements, right? Of course, some students find them more difficult than other students. And some areas, some particular areas, if you're really interested in a particular niche area of biomedical engineering, you might find it difficult to find that particular placement. But other than that, in general, generally speaking, no, you wouldn't have too much of a trouble in finding placements. How much face-to-face is there for this course? And can you have a job while studying, or would that not be recommended? All right. First question, how much face-to-face? There is face-to-face for all our courses. None of our courses are designed to be online, right? Online was mainly just for the COVID period. As long as we're not limited again by another COVID lockdown or some other more serious pandemic in the future, all of our studies are intended to be face-to-face. Can we have a job while studying, or would that not be recommended? You can have a job while you're studying, right? It just means that you do need to balance your sort of time management quite carefully, right? Of course, because studying while working is actually not an easy thing to do, right? So that's more of a personal decision, I guess. Obviously, the recommendation is that you should focus more on your studies. But if you do have the opportunity to do some sort of part-time job, especially if it's related to engineering or biomedical engineering, then actually I would sort of take on that opportunity as well, and then try to manage your time as best as you can, right? We don't have any sort of rules or laws, let's say, that stop you from getting part-time positions whilst you're studying. But it's just a matter of you trying to balance all that. All right, so lots of questions. It seems like almost one question per person, which is great. It means the webinar has engaged some questions and engaged some thoughts. So yeah, just as a personal, sorry, I Carla, you were going to say something. Just as a personal sort of thing of mine, I did the degree here at University of Sydney. I've seen how biomed has changed, not just as a program, but also as a discipline and also as an industry. I've been here, how long now? 14 years, right? Since my undergrad days. You could do the sort of the calculation backwards. I came in 2008. You could probably guess my age from that. 2008, and then undergrad here combined with medical science, right? And then my PhD until 2017, and now I'm an academic lecturer here at the School of Biomedical Engineering. So if you have any questions about how biomedical engineering has developed over the past 10 years, and it's grown very rapidly, I'd have to say. I'm essentially like a fossil here, a fossil record almost. What's the lowest ATAR to get the entry to this course? The official ATAR entry ATAR is, I believe, 90, right? But there are schemes which you can apply for to, I guess, modify that ATAR entry. So the official is 90. Right? Are lectures online or face-to-face? They are face-to-face. Right? I may have mentioned this in an earlier question that all of our courses are designed to be delivered face-to-face, right? And online delivery is only really limited to, let's say, pandemic scenarios where everyone's forced online. So yeah.
Well, Yang, I think that was a great session. Thank you very much for today.
Thanks,
and thank you very much to all the students who took the time to come here, listen to us, and for all those great questions. Any other questions that you might have? Erika, can you put that on the chat?
Yes.
The email address, so you can send us an email. Any other questions that you might have? There you go. schools.outreach@sydney.edu.au. So any other questions that you might have, or you can think later, we'll be very happy to answer that. Now, for the last question of the day.
How many are in first year usually? So the recent years, we've had 200 students coming in every year. For combined, like including all the single or including all the combined for biomedical engineering. On average, 200 for the past few years. So it is quite a vibrant cohort, right? And everyone is very nice. I haven't had any sort of cases where sort of students were sort of unhappy with each other. Like as in everyone's gets along very well. We have a very vibrant student society. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts that have been made by them, USyd, right? And they're sponsored by some companies, biomed companies on the back there too. Right? And we do have a very vibrant student society. Welcome dinners, industry nights, it's like events where you can connect with industry at a more informal level as well. And we're now getting courses where more industry people are actually involved in our courses too. So, yeah.
I think we can fairly say that the School of Biomedical Engineering is fairly active,
Yes.
not just for the faculty, but university in general. So
I think that I'm very proud of our student cohort. It's very vibrant and they're very active as well. So, yeah.
All right. So, well, thank you very much for coming today. Hopefully we can see you. Well, we have info day at the end of the year, open day next year. And if you happen to be on year 12 at the moment, we have info day at the end of the year. Hopefully we see you next year at uni with us. No? Thank you, Yang, again for that fantastic presentation and answering those questions well, really well. So thank you very much. Everyone, stay safe and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.